Good evening. You're on the smoking section. My name is Stephen Helfer. Every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Last week I had my guest on, Paul Neff, and we kind of discussed what happened at the City Council hearing, which is actually a hearing of the City Council Ordinance Committee, and they're considering an ordinance, which I'm going to talk about again, to ban smoking in all construction sites. And they started at the council hearing. We had three councilors there: Jan Devereaux, Carlone, and Nadim Mason. And there was a presentation made by a fellow named Will, who is an assistant to Craig Kelly, who is another city councilor. And Craig Kelly adamantly wants to ban smoking on construction sites. And basically, he talks a little bit about secondhand smoke, but of course this is outside. These are unenclosed areas. So if you're talking about secondhand smoke exposure in unenclosed areas, you get to areas where even anti-smokers sometimes dropped the pretext of secondhand smoke being harmful and start saying, well, we're worried about modeling, that teenagers or young people may see people smoking and thereby get a bad idea. They may so that even anti-smoking extremists who want to ban smoking in parks have dropped the outside smoking, secondhand smoke exposure pretext to do it. Of course, anybody who watches this show would realize that most of these regulations and restrictions are not at all for protecting anybody from anything. They are really designed to interfere with the daily lives of smokers and make parks less attractive for them, make beaches less attractive for them, exclude them from enjoying bars and enjoying restaurants. None of these things are really, truthfully, having anything to do with secondhand smoke exposure. But fortunately, at this hearing, Sam Lipson, who is the environmental health officer for the Cambridge Public Health Department, otherwise known as the Cambridge Health Alliance, was truthful enough to caution the city councilors that even if you get into the tobacco control movement, there is very little evidence, in fact, almost none at all, that exposing people outdoors to secondhand smoke is harmful. So this was very interesting to see someone in the public health profession be so honest, and it was helpful to us. But then, of course, their fallback position is, well, if we ban smoking on outdoor, unenclosed construction sites, we will eliminate fires. Yet I was privileged enough to speak to the Cambridge Fire Chief, Gerald Reardon, and he was, off the top of his head, he said that approximately, and it sounds like a very large number, but I actually did a little research, and it seems that the Cambridge Fire Department gets about 30,000 calls a year all over the city. Now, these calls are related to all kinds of matters, but where the fire department needs to respond in some way. And according to Gerald Reardon, the fire chief, of these 30,000 calls, about 35 are to construction sites. And of the 35 to construction sites, according to Captain Reardon, the majority have nothing to do with fires. The majority have to do with accidents and things of that nature. So that there are almost no responses by the fire department to construction site fires. And even if there are fires, very few of them are started by smoking, if any. My guess is that there probably hasn't been a construction site fire caused by a cigarette in Cambridge, perhaps ever, but certainly I bet there is none on record. Because another figure that was cited by Craig Kelly's assistant was that cigarette-caused fires are the third leading cause of fires on construction sites. But what Will did not mention was that 41% of fires on construction sites are caused by suspicious fires, otherwise known as arson. Another 30% are caused by what are called open flame, which is essentially rubbish fires and incinerator fires that get out of hand. So that takes 71% of fires, and while indeed smoking may be the third highest of all causes of fires, it's under 5%, along with fires caused by children, fires caused by cooking, and all of these, which really are very, very, very few. So even though smoking is technically, according to some outdated figures, we're talking about 1996 to 98, are caused by smoking, the smoking-related fires are almost none. And these figures come from before the advent of fire-safer cigarettes, which were mandated in Massachusetts in 2008, and now are mandated in all 50 states. And these are cigarettes to which there is some what are called speed bumps added in the paper, and also some chemical, which I'm not sure of. But what it means is that unless the cigarette is strongly puffed on a lot, it goes out, and therefore there is not time to ignite anything. So for example, with a fire-safe cigarette, if someone drops it on some bedding, then it would take so long for it would go out before there was time to ignite. So all of these statistics are before fire-safe cigarettes, but of course, again, Craig Kelly's assistant didn't mention this. And Chief Reardon, another point that was made by the presenter was that in a lot of construction sites, that there aren't adequate sprinklers or hydrants. But according to Chief Reardon, the Cambridge Fire Department is very proactive, and that anytime there is a construction site, his team makes sure that there are hydrants, sprinklers, even if they're temporary, to make sure that these make sure that these sites are very, very safe areas, and that there's very little chance of fire. And again, that's another reason why there are almost no construction fires. So unfortunately, what Councillor Kelly seems to be doing is just introducing another way to harass smokers and curtail the liberty of adults, because certainly on any of these construction sites, we don't have teenagers, we don't have children or anything like that, and they are not being exposed to secondhand smoke, or they're not smoking. So this is something, again, which we are curtailing the adults' liberties to choose their own way of living. And another thing that I mentioned to at the hearing was that David Present, who was at the time, at least in 2006, was the chief medical officer of the New York City Fire Department, when he was explaining why so many firefighters, particularly when there is a disaster such as what happened in 2001, why they smoke. David Present said, quote, "Tobacco calms your nerves, increases awareness, allows you to stay up. These are all things that people want in the middle of a disaster." End of quote. So even the chief medical officer of the New York City Fire Department acknowledges that tobacco not only calms your nerves, but it increases your awareness. Now, certainly people on construction sites, our firefighters, are others who are engaged in very dangerous situations which require a great deal of stamina, which require a great deal of cool nerves, and also a lot of awareness, can use smoking to not only enjoy and relax, but to increase their ability. Now, it seems we have a phone call. You're on the smoking section. Welcome.
Hi, Steve. This is Paul.
Oh, hey, Paul. How are you? Can you speak a little louder?
Okay, I'll do that. Hey, one thing I was thinking today, a terse way of putting the situation, is that the anti-smoking movement, or tobacco control, whatever you want to call it.
Yes, can you speak as loud as you can? I'm sorry, we're not hearing you very well.
As the tobacco control movement has been a success in terms of winning over the authorities.
Yes. Okay, I'm just going to repeat what you said because I'm not sure our audience can hear it. Okay. Paul just said that the tobacco control movement has been very successful at winning over authorities. Okay, continue, Paul.
Right. But as far as winning over people, they've been a total failure at really getting people involved with their cause, or getting people to believe it. And I think most people know that ordinances like the one, about the construction sites are disingenuous. And
okay, let me just repeat what you said, because I don't think our audio is that good. So you maintain that even though the tobacco control movement has made great inroads and success with persons in positions of authority, that the average citizen, let's say, recognizes that many of these bans aren't really designed to do what they say they're doing. They're just designed to harass smokers. Is that what you're saying?
People are really catching on, and they're resenting the pressure to tolerate or accept an extremist position.
So you think the public in general is getting tired of the anti-smoking movement and is resentful of their extremism? Is that?
Yeah, like I'm very happy, with the people that I talk to while I'm out there petitioning.
Right. By any chance, did you read the letter to the editor in the Globe that was posted on our in our Facebook page?
Yes, and I shared it.
Oh, very good.
And in fact, my comment was that the people tired of accepting oppression aren't just smokers, but they're just the general public that is sick of being pressured into taking an extremist position.
All right, thank you, Paul. I'm going to have to hang up because, unfortunately, our audio is not working very well, and it's very hard to hear you. But it was, Paul Neff was basically saying that, which he has said before, that they're not just smokers are getting fed up with this kind of lifestyle policing, mostly aimed at tobacco, but in other ways. Well, I certainly hope that is the case, and there was a great letter to the Boston Globe written by a woman named Felicia Ackerman, who is a professor of philosophy at Brown University, and she is, according to her, a lifelong non-smoker who pretty much says exactly what Paul Neff says, that Americans in general are getting fed up, are getting not enamored with the kind of lifestyle policing, I guess, for lack of a better word, that most expresses itself in the anti-smoking movement. Paul also mentioned that when we table in Harvard Square, we meet a lot of people who are expressing that opinion, even if they're non-smokers. They don't like to see smokers. They don't like to see people pushed around. They don't like to be told what to do. And as a matter of fact, the last day I was out, I did meet a retired physician. In fact, I have his card here, who is expressing exactly that. His name is Wendell Smith, and he was telling me, and he was in his mid-70s, looked to me in excellent health, and he said he had smoked a pack a day for 30 years, which is, it's called 30-pack years in tobacco control parlance, and he was in his mid-70s and looked perfectly healthy. And even though he didn't smoke right now, or he has given up smoking, he was completely enthusiastic, even as a physician, that people have a right to their autonomy. And that right is not given to us by the United States Constitution or by the Declaration of Independence, but is affirmed by those documents. And it's also affirmed by the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, which was in 1948. And anybody who reads these documents and sees that people in that the many people who are enforcing these kinds of lifestyle choices on people are really violating some very, very important tenets of some very important documents and some things that certainly in the American experience we have always held very dear, especially, you know, around July 4th. We're supposed to celebrate our freedom, and yet in many petty ways, as you know, for example, for Councilor Kennedy to want to insinuate the power of the government to just tell somebody at a construction site that they can't smoke, which is already a very, very dangerous site where there are many chemicals, many heat sources, tripping, and where people who smoke, for the alertness it gives them, I feel it probably reduces accidents and reduces harm in construction sites. So not only is it unnecessary imposition of the power of government, but I think in many ways it could very well lead to people actually becoming drowsy, not being alert, losing, you know, not having as quick reaction time and so forth. All right, so this, I think I'm going to try to talk a little bit about a smoker of the week, if I can manipulate this very complicated stuff in front of me. Here we go. Here we are. This gentleman's name is Jack Priestley, and he was featured on our Facebook page, Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights on Facebook, and he was featured as the centenarian. We have a series of smokers who reach the 100th mark, and this is Jack at his 100th birthday, and he smoked from the age of 9, which reminds me that's what that person that Paul Neff always talks about, I can't remember, he said he was the head of the Mercury magazine from Baltimore, but he said he never smoked a cigarette before the age of 9. Well, Jack started at the age of 9. And he was pretty soon he enjoyed it so much that he was smoking up to 2 packs a day until he reached the age of 58. And at the age of 58, under the advice of his doctor, he switched to cigars, and he smoked 10 Corona cigars a day. And again, here he is on his 100th birthday, which was in 2008. And he also did something else that was very unusual, or not that unusual, but his mother-in-law told him that it would be a very good idea every morning in his tea before breakfast to have a small shot of whiskey. So Mr. Priestley continued having shots of whiskey from the age of 24 up until the age of 100, which this news article was written in Britain. Mr. Priestley said that he was surprised that anybody smoked these days because, given all the hoopla about it, he thought that people would be afraid to go near matches, much less near tobacco, but that he found that in his 91 years of smoking cigars and cigarettes heavily, both, smoked 2 packs a day and smoked 10 large cigars a day, that smoking had never done him any harm. And so here's another example. As I say, in our Facebook page, we have examples of many centenarians who are inveterate smokers and often live past the age of 100 and in very good health. Jack was in very good health at 100, which was in 2008, and he would tend his own garden, drive his own car, do his own grocery shopping. Unfortunately, or I don't know, fortunately, because I think we all have to die, Jack did die in 2014. So rest in peace, Jack Priestley. Enjoyed at least 100 years of smoking and made no apologies for it, and was in very, very good health at least up until the age of 100, and started when he was 9 years old. Well, another project that Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights is working on, and we're working on it having consulted with Councillor Mazin, and that is that we're going to try to get some ashtrays, public ashtrays out in certain key areas in Cambridge, one of which I think would be very important is Magazine Street and Green Street, because that's where many people wait for buses and there's no ashtray there. And of course, you know, one reason that smokers tend to throw their cigarette butts on the street is because we can't smoke inside anymore. There are no ashtrays, and there are no ashtrays outside. So these cigarette butts accumulate a bit, and of course, anti-smokers don't want to see public ashtrays, because the more cigarette butts there are outside, the more animosity they can foment towards smokers. So Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights is working on talking to the director of the Cambridge agency, which is responsible for a public works department, and to see if we can start a pilot project. And somehow we have to get these ashtrays, which are more visible and more used than many of these outdoor receptacles that we see around, which don't get used as much as I think would be good. Well, listen, thanks for watching the smoking section. Tune in next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Good night.